All right, I am back. Let's try this again. Hello and welcome. Today I am going to go over a little Beast Academy math because people have been curious about it. And I'll just give you our limited experience with it, but I am happy to share it. All right. Hello, guys. Welcome. It's good to see everybody. All right. Hello. Oh, you know what? I'm getting glared at from this side. Let's change the lighting up a little bit. Let's see if that helps. Sorry. Oh, okay. You just got this. All right. Well, you'll have to let me know. Yeah, this is from The Art of Problem Solving. Oh, no problem. Catch the replay. Catch the replay. I hopefully will answer any questions that you have, even if you can't be here. I'll answer any that people who can be here have. But first, I'll introduce myself. Oh, it's right here. Oh, I so understand. I haven't scoped in forever, and I've just been a little slower paced. I think it was one of those things that when it first started, I was just on and loving it. And, then life catches up with you and you're like, oh, it's not the holidays anymore. And I need to get to school and I have a summer to plan. And so I'm just trying to find that balance for myself, as I know you guys are too. So I totally understand if you have to go, you can catch the replay. I love catch.com and or catch.me, and it holds everybody's scopes. I just think that's brilliant. So that if you can't see them in the 24 hours, I sometimes have to have set aside some time on the weekend so I can watch a bunch. All right, my name is Mary, and I have a blog. Oh, I did not see that Catch is closing. This is very sad. No. Oh my gosh, in the middle of oh no. I did not see this. I'm really sad to hear that. I guess the other option is we're all going to have to save it to our camera roll at the end and upload it to YouTube. And we will all need YouTube accounts. And my daughter's going to have to teach me how to edit videos to put them on YouTube so they don't look as silly. Okay, that is really disappointing news. But now back to the scope. Okay, I'm Mary. This is where I blog. I try to get information from my Periscope on my blog. It doesn't always happen, but I do my best. I probably won't put this on the blog though, just because it's an easier thing for me to talk about and not write about. But we have been using Beast Academy this year since about, I'm going to say October, November. Beast Academy is put out by The Art of Problem Solving, which also has... they do a lot of other middle and high school. They do the Math Olympiad across the United States. So it's a great math program, and this is the book they put out for elementary school. And the reason it caught my eye when I first looked at it is this is the textbook. Isn't that cool? It is a comic book, which is fantastic. So right away, the kids were attracted to the fact that this was a comic book. It wasn't just your typical math textbook. And in it, these little monsters all talk about the math that you have to accomplish and learn. So you start to get to know the characters, and they teach you all about whatever the concept is. So my fifth grade, okay, here's the funny story. I ordered this for my son who's in third grade, thinking it would be right up his alley because he loves math, he loves numbers, and it wasn't. He loves the comic books. As soon as these come in, he actually reads the entire guide front to back, which I would order the guide just for that because he loves to just read the comic and hear. But when it came to the workbook, he was either not ready or just doesn't think the way that the workbook works, which I'm going to show you in a minute. It's not your traditional math workbook. He much prefers just give me the problems, let me solve them. Where Beast Academy really does a lot of mathematical thinking and playing with numbers in all sorts of different ways. So, I'm sorry, I keep getting distracted. Anyway, so it's not an easy curriculum. That being said, I ordered it for my 3rd grade son. It did not suit him, though he loves the comic book textbooks. But my 5th grade daughter started looking at it and started playing with it. And it was this first book, which 3A is shapes and skip counting, perimeter, and area. And she started playing around with all of the shape problems in here. I want to turn to a page that kind of caught our interest early on. Yeah, it was like all pentominoes and how to play with, well, those aren't the pentominoes, but play with all the shapes. And it was very visual. And she is my daughter who is really into art. She takes private art lessons and does painting, and she just loves art. And in fact, it was funny. Today she was working on this, and I went to explain something on how to do it, and she was like, "Oh, this is easy for me, Mom. I'm an artist." So anyway, oh, I blocked that person. After their second comment that was kind of off topic, I just figured maybe they were someone who was just commenting to get followers. So I hope that isn't someone in our homeschool scopes group. I might have to unblock them if it is, and I'll go in and I can do that. It's so hard to know sometimes. Okay, so how this works. I will tell you this is not easy math. This is a lot of problem solving. And what it starts with, I'm going to actually turn this so you can see the workbook. So the way it starts is it starts with like some basic problems. So 6 toothpicks can be arranged to make 2 triangles. How can only 5 toothpicks be arranged to make 2 triangles? So these are like your basic problems. There's no stars by them. So you can see this is not normal math workbook stuff. This is a lot of playing and thinking, creating. It's really outside the box. And then you're working with equilateral. Over here, you're making equilateral triangles. So you're learning these math concepts, but you're not doing it in a worksheet sort of way. But then you get to ones that have 1 star. And these are a little harder. And then eventually, yeah, and that's the thing I'm going to tell you. My 5th grade daughter is doing this. 5th grade, okay? Because sometimes it gets to ones, I'm looking for one with 2 stars. I'm not seeing any right now. Sometimes it gets to one with 2 stars on it, and the 2, oh, okay. You want to turn, maybe you want me to do this. Maybe that's what you're asking? But the 2-star problems, there's a 1. There were some in here, I'm telling you, that we could not solve. So here, I'll give you an example of the perimeter. I don't know, this seems to make more sense to me. Okay, no, everyone's saying this. Okay. The perimeter of the rectilinear shapes. So they started very basic, where they just were missing 2 sides, and they were pretty easy to figure out. Down here, you had this side missing, and it was pretty easy to figure out. As it got more and more challenging over here, you had to find the perimeter, or was it impossible? So she couldn't do it, and I couldn't do it. You had to know the perimeter if you wanted to find the missing sides. So it got a little harder as it went over perimeter. So you can see, to me, this was a lot harder than 3rd grade. Then we did perimeters of these shapes. And it really got the concept of perimeter down. And that's what I really liked. It's all, yeah, impossible was a choice. And in fact, somebody told me, when it comes to this particular curriculum, that the art of problem solving, because they're teaching kids to think, they often put problems in there that are impossible to solve. Now, we have not found that so far in 3B. And there is an answer key. Okay. And Kirsten is chiming in, that often works. There are answers in the back, but they're not always really well explained. And there wasn't an answer, I'm looking to see, I felt like there wasn't an answer to every problem. But as I'm looking, I'm seeing them all here. So it kind of depended on what you were doing, but there is answers in the back. Yes, some were explained better than others. So yeah, I do want to say it is hard. It is my 5th grade daughter, and I started her at 3A because the math, hello Vanessa, is so different than the traditional workbook. We actually use Singapore, And because the math was so different, I didn't want to start her in the 5th grade book, even though she's in 5th grade, because I figured, well, we can just go through it quickly if we want, or we can slow down, you know, if she needs to. And honestly, it's been right on target for her. I don't know if you can do it online, but they sell it online. I mean, they have a website for Art of Problem Solving, but I don't know. So this is 3B, and I have to say, one thing I've loved about 3B. 3B is multiplication. It is perfect squares and the distributive property. I don't know that they have an online program. You would have to check. My daughter who's doing Beast Academy, we dropped Singapore. It was not working for her. She was hating math. And since we have switched to Beast Academy, yeah, I think it totally can stand on its own. Again, I've only done 3A and 3B. So please take that into consideration that I'm by no means an expert, but I am doing it alone. I'm not adding anything to it. She made it into Singapore about 4A before she was just feeling like she wasn't good at math and she couldn't get things done. And now that we're doing this, like today, she literally was like, I'm so good with numbers. Really, like this was the kid who was putting her head down and crying when we were doing Singapore. Now my other kids, my 2 younger boys are still in Singapore and it's working for them. It just wasn't working for her. What I loved about the multiplication in here, again, it is the comic book is your textbook. What I loved about the multiplication is for my daughter who has had a really hard time memorizing her math facts, they kept throwing them at her in so many different ways that I've seen the biggest improvement in her math facts that I've seen from anything else. So I'm going to show you now. 3A was the geometry. It was kind of hard. 3B, you know, they started with some basic multiplication charts that she could fill in. And then they got to these squares. Would you start cooking about a pound and a half? Yeah. So they started filling these in, and they started pretty basic. You just had to fill in what the 2 overlapping squares multiplied to be. Then it got a little more challenging where they would give you the number and you had to come up with the factor. So you had the product, you had to come up with the factor. Then here they gave them all products, and they had to come up with all the factors that would multiply and work there. And keep in mind, there's a lot of choices here. So for 18, you could have had 6 and 3. You can see some erasers on the page. I remember people asking me to do this. I'll do this. So for 18, you could have had 6 and 3, but we ended up figuring out, oh no, wait, it's also got to be a factor of 45. So we can't have 6 there. You know, maybe we could have 3, and we had to kind of play and think. And then it got to much bigger problems. Yeah. And keep in mind, I let her use her multiplication chart through this. I really did. I think it'd be totally fine to start with 3B. In fact, 3B could almost be a standalone for a kid struggling with math facts, because then this made her apply them. So then it moved on to area. You know, remember that we did perimeter in book 3A. So now we're doing area, and now she was applying the math facts. And then I'm going to show you, and then we got to like word puzzles. So there's so much going on here with math facts that if you could just do this as a standalone book for a kid who needs application of math facts rather than just the math facts. Yeah, this is so different than any other textbook. So I'm going to show you as they got into the bonus problems, they got a little harder. Oh my goodness, I totally understand that. I thought these were cool. What they did here, these were mazes. You started at 1, and these were the products that got you released. So the first product you had to make was 4. So 1 times 4 was 4. Then once you were on the 4, you had to make the product 24. So you had to go to the 6. So it was just a different way of practicing your facts. And they got a little harder and harder. But it just forced her to keep recalling the facts over and over and over, but in a totally different method. I know, Alicia, you know I like math. So here, the first product you had to make was 7, and so you went to the 7. And then you had to make, oh, sorry, it's crossed out. You had to make 63. So you had to go from 7 to 9. So yeah, this was, and then you're back to these. They got harder. We put the 10s in. So now we've gone over the rule of how to multiply with numbers that end in 0. So I think this could be a standalone curriculum, even though it's not doing it in a traditional way. You're hitting all the important concepts. These got really hard too. you had to put the numbers underneath needed to multiply to give you the product up above. And again, you're putting in the numbers with the tens now to reinforce that. And there were several different answers that could have worked as you were going. So you had to kind of keep trying what would fit in the puzzle. They've started a little bit with order of operations, and they're going to do more in this book. This was actually pretty hard. So I didn't even make her do this one. Let's see. Here were robots that multiply whatever you put in them by 5. And it helped you notice that 5 is the same as times 10 times a half. So they played with these robots for a while. An Octobot multiplies by 8, which would be the same as doing 2 times 2 times 2. Maybe, I don't know if erasing could destroy them. I don't know. It works for me though. Yeah, the pages are pretty thick. These aren't like, these are pretty thick. So we just write right on it. Yes, it's all about the math brain. It's a very different approach. So then they started doing like arrays and figuring out, you know, your skip counting while you're doing this. Then they got even more complex. So you figure out that these 4, 8, 12, 16. So she labeled all these 16. And then you're doing 3, 6, 9. You label all these 9. Then you're doing 9 times 4 is 36. And 16 times 4 is 64. So you are doing, yeah, this is 3rd grade. Keep in mind, my 5th grade daughter is doing this. So you are doing a lot of math. But it's so different. Here, these, you just had to circle the groups of exactly 3 numbers that have a product of 36. This was a bonus one. They started a lot easier. They started with circle the groups of 2 or more numbers that have a product of 27. So this was a little easier. There you go. You could start, they don't have books for 2nd grade, but you could start this at 2nd grade if your kid was really into it. But you really have to enjoy, I mean, some of these, you can see all the work we were doing to figure out these problems. If your kid really enjoys playing with numbers, then yeah, you could start this earlier. But this is technically the 3rd grade book. Yeah, they're still working on writing 2nd grade, and they're still working on 5B. They're going to do 5B the end of 5th grade, and then they're going to go back to 2nd grade. Yeah, so this is a maze. You have to follow, this is perfect squares now. So this is introducing the concept of perfect squares. So you follow and you connect to the next perfect square. And this is actually where we are right now. So I'll show you what we did today. Oh, this is what she did the other day. I thought this was awesome. So you had to put these so that the numbers next to each other add up to a perfect square. 4 plus 5 is 9, 12 plus 4 is 16. And it got to the point where they had her do the numbers 1 through 16, and she had to figure out an order to put these in where every number next to the other one made a perfect square. So this is 9, this is 16, this is 25, this is 16. You know, that's what I was thinking because my son is so good at numbers, but he did not like all the problem-solving thinking stuff. I don't think you have to be gifted to do this. That being said, the playing with numbers, I was a math teacher, and even though I taught math really traditionally, it doesn't intimidate me to sit there. So I sit with her while she's doing this. Now, she actually came up with this concept of creating these colored pairs. And then what happened is we both noticed that you eventually, once you connect every block that be connected, you'll find that there's a block that only one color comes out of, the 9 was. And you can start there, 9, and 9 connects to 7, and 7, wherever 7 connected, 7 connects to 2, and you just followed it. Yeah, it's great for some kids, not for all. Only my 2nd daughter is doing this. And I know you all are saying gifted. She actually has a learning disability in math. She qualified for a learning disability because she was below grade level. She couldn't memorize her math facts. She had trouble with worksheets. I mean, she would look at a workbook in Singapore and see like a 3-digit times 1-digit number, and she would just fall her head down to the table and was like, I don't want to do this. So just be careful with, like, I'm not sure it's just gifted kids. It's just a different way of attacking numbers and math concepts that really helps you look at like problem solving and playing with numbers and guessing and checking and not being afraid to think beyond just the math facts. So that being said, what qualities she does have is she's really artistic. She's very creative. And her art teacher even said to her, you're going to be really good at math because art is so much math. And when she took the testing she did, because we had some academic concerns, we found that she was, visual. She was off the charts in spatial IQ, like spatial awareness. She tested extremely high, but in other things she didn't. So I would also say to you, if you have a really spatially aware kid, this is a great curriculum for that. So you can see tomorrow what they're having her do. We already did one to show her how to do it. Is here's the space she's given, and she has to do she has to fit 5 squares that have an area of 4, 2 squares that have an area of 9, and 2 that have an area of 16, and it has to cover this whole board. So she and I were working on this one today, and we had initially put it in the wrong spot because I told her, you start with the big ones, fit them in first, and then go down the line from there. Don't start with your little ones. And we talked about why that made sense. So again, I don't mind doing it with her. That was not in a teacher's guide. I knew mathematically. I think Melanie just said, you can make it work. I make it work for her. I can help her think through the process of doing this, and then she can attack it. But in the end, I was like, I can't fit this last one. What do we do wrong? And she immediately saw it. So this is right up her alley. How much does she do a day? A page or 2? I mean, it kind of depends. If she's got the energy, it doesn't lay out in the teacher's guide. I just kind of go by the energy that she has. Like, wow, you're really great at this. Why don't you do 2 more? Or if she does, 2 of these tomorrow and they're really easy for her, I might go on to the next page, and sometimes I'll say, all right, well, look at the hard ones and pick 2 of those and just do them. Instead of, I kind of just modify it as we go along. But if she's gotten to one, like eventually in this one, there's some order of operations. These are going to be a little harder for her. It's more traditional, though the numbers are pretty small. I'm looking at them. These numbers aren't that intimidating. So actually, she won't mind this. But you have to decide, like if that's not the daughter that does this math, but yeah, that's my older one, my 13-year-old. You have to decide, like if I have my daughter do this page, that's all she'll be up for that day. She won't want to do anything else. And the next page does it and goes a little more advanced. She won't be up for that in the same day. So you kind of have to decide. And then they eventually, they take away the parentheses and have you practice, just can you now do the addition and subtraction first? And are you getting the right answer in the end? So it gets a lot harder. Distributive property. So I just judge it by her. But I'm not really big on the number on the book having to match the grade that she's in. My kids have kind of gotten beyond that. Yeah, the pacing just kind of varies with what we're doing and what she's up for. Honestly, she really thrives in short lessons. She's not the kind of kid that could sit down and do 30 or 40 minutes of math. Not at this point. So after she's worked maybe 15 minutes, she's kind of done. I think it's more spiral, but that being said, because of the way it's doing everything through problem solving, it's pulling in a lot of skills. So yeah, I'm 8 years into homeschooling and I'm just getting that down too. So even though like you're doing multiplication, they're pulling in area, they're pulling in perfect squares, they're pulling in so many other things that yes, it's mastery of multiplication, but you're hitting a lot of other concepts, so you're not going to necessarily forget them. Here's the rest of the 3s. So in 3C, which I haven't ordered yet, we're going to do variables, division, and measurement. And in 3D, we're going to do fractions, estimation, and area. So we're coming back to the area there. We're probably going to put fractions in it. So I do feel like it's more of a mastery curriculum, but it's pulling a lot of different things in. So I hope that makes sense. So again, we've only done 3A and B. I'm not an expert on the art of problem solving. It sounds like Kirsten maybe has used some of their older books. Yeah, this is all technically 3rd grade according to them. So do not get hung up on the numbers when you're looking at Beast Academy. It's really different. So just think about, you know, the skills maybe. But even my daughter had done shapes and skip counting and perimeter and area, and we learned a ton in level 3A. And this one, I guess perfect squares and distributive property, I would have said, oh, we haven't done that yet. But she's done fractions, estimation, and area, and I have a feeling we'll still learn a ton in 3D. So, you know, honestly, I can't answer that, the scope and sequence of why they group them the way they do, because everyone does it differently. So I'm sure there's some reasoning people put into their curriculums, but every curriculum approaches it differently. Typically, area goes with multiplication because you multiply to find the area, and perimeter goes with addition because you add to find the perimeter and things like that. But really, it's just a person's choice. Of course, as you look at topics you need in mathematics, you have to make sure that if one topic requires knowledge of another, you do the other one first. But the textbook, people really kind of come up with that. Wow, I've been talking a while. I didn't mean to be in here so long. But I hope that has given some of you just an insight into this. Honestly, if your kids struggle with math and they like comic books, just having these around, like I said, my 3rd grade son who I bought this for, it was not his thing, but as soon as the new comic book arrives, he reads the whole thing cover to cover. He loves it. But he doesn't really want to do the problem solving this way. He wants to do his traditional math. So you are welcome, guys. I hope that you have great success if you give it a shot. And keep in mind, I sit with my daughter for this curriculum. So this is not something that you can just hand her and they'll kind of figure it out. It's not going to be an independent curriculum by any means, unless you do just have one of those kids that loves fiddling with numbers. But again, this is elementary school, so I don't think there's a whole lot of independent fiddling necessarily going on, at least not in my house. So it does require mom sitting there. So you are welcome all, and if you have any other questions you think of, feel free to shoot me an email. I am going to go make tacos because it is taco night. And I hope you guys have a great evening. And I'm going to look into this catch thing and figure out what we have to do now with all of our videos. I'm so sad. All right, bye-bye. Oh, I got to flip the camera. Shutting down.
What?
I know.